Welcome to Raising Consciousness with me, Lou Burrows, where raising human consciousness happens. On this show, I'm joined by guests to cover a range of topics and have conversations that will raise human consciousness for current and future generations. Now, let's dive into today's show. Hi everyone, welcome back to Raising Consciousness with me, your host, Luke Burrows. And today on the show, we have Elena, who's joining us actually from her school in London. So Elena, thank you so much for joining us here on Raising Consciousness. I'm gonna hand over to you to introduce yourself. So yeah, we'd love to learn more about who you are, what you do, and some of the things that you're passionate about, and then we'll dive into today's conversation.
Awesome. So my name's Elena, and I am essentially a leadership coach and a business lecturer for colleges and schools. But my main sort of passion and vision for life is to increase leadership for future generations, and that may be through education or through any personal kind of growth that individuals do, and all that comes along with that is what we learn as well as how we behave.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to go right back to I want to go right back to how you first started to, I guess, develop that passion for leadership and helping the next generation. Can you take us way back and kind of how that passion started?
Well, as a lot of people would probably say that their growth moment was in a very hard time. I didn't know that I was doing this, or that I had this mentality all the way through my sort of career aspirations and so on. Education has been the only sort of career or vision that I've had throughout my life, and but primarily where my vision to start my own business and take leadership education and leadership training to a whole new level was during the pandemic, when basically right at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020 in March, I was basically made redundant, and at the time I was working as a manager in an education provider, but I had only just started working there. So essentially, they just said, go home, and we don't know whether we're going to be able to pay you, or we don't know if you'll be required to come back. So I basically just ended up saying, what is happening with my life? And that ended, or that essentially that took about a year of obviously lockdowns and so on and so forth, and just constantly looking for work. And I think that probably was the universe telling me that there's something else that I need to be focusing on, or there's something further for me out there. So I came across sort of while I was sort of reading and kind of up leveling myself. I came across the book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and that essentially just blew my mind. I was at the time I was traveling from the UK to Romania by car, so it took us about, I would say, just over 24 or 30 hours, and within that, I just listened to the audiobook literally every single minute. So it was 3 of us, myself, my husband, and my brother, who were all traveling in 3 different cars, and I just had a whole car to myself and the whole time to myself to divulge into this book. And from that point, I just had to share those concepts with everybody and anybody. And I decided, you know what, I want to train in this. And those concepts have basically been the foundation to me improving my personal leadership behaviors, as well as me wanting to impart that same mindset to the young people that I come across every single day. So fast forward to 3 years or so, 2.5 years, and I've decided to be a trainer in the 7 habits, and I've got I sort of went through the training process for the 7 habits in the UK for the UK franchise, and I am now in the process of launching my own, with a business partner, my own leadership training program for young people, using the 7 habits as the basis, and incorporating health, and also just mindset, meditation, and those kinds of concepts within the training. And we're looking forward to, in the next couple of months, to launch our sort of beta testing the first group of people, of young people, to take our program and kind of test it out, and provide us a bit of feedback before we get to launch it out to everybody and anybody, especially for what we look for in, like, personal development groups, or parents especially, that have been on a personal development journey, that see it as a valuable concept, and as a valuable teaching tool for their children.
I find that amazing. And I actually read the book myself, although it was a few years ago, so I probably need to refresh myself with a lot of the concepts and ideas. But I definitely remember reading it, and and at the time it being, as it sounds for you, like transformative, which is great. One of the questions I wrote down here was, so how do you bring the concepts from the book and everything that you've learned within this domain of becoming a better leader into your school, into your class, to the teenagers and to the young people that you teach, especially in the current education system that might not be kind of set up for that, I guess, without trying to be too disrespectful to the current system, right? Because obviously you are a teacher and stuff, but hopefully, like, you know what I mean. And I'm kind of interested in how you do that.
Well, actually, funnily enough, what spurred me on a little bit more to kind of bring these concepts into the framework of my teaching, because I do bring in sort of very small aspects of the training, or the ideas, but into sort of lessons every day, especially because one of my main specialism at the moment is teaching business, and the 7 habits essentially was a personal development sort of concept for business leaders and for business people. I kind of use those as the starting point to say, look, if these are the kinds of people, or you want to go into a business framework, then you're going to need to use these concepts, and you're going to need to become a leader, in order to either have your own business, which a lot of the young people that I come across in the business field, they're obviously, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, and so on, and I always bring it back to the concept of, you personally are the vehicle that's going to get you from an idea to actually achieving entrepreneurship and success within business. But I have pitched, and I'm in the process of bringing the 7 habits as a program for the whole college group that I'm part of, which is college, Crawley College, but it's part of Chichester College Group, which has a partnership with about 6 or 7 other colleges in southeast, or the southwest, of the UK. And that, actually, the fact that when I spoke with the one of the leaders of the college group, primarily the CFO, they were actually, it was quite fantastic that they were open to the idea of bringing the 7 habits, or the training of the 7 habits, because they themselves went through the 7 habits training they said, sometime back in 2012, and they said, oh my God, this is the most fantastic thing that actually has helped me get to where I am currently. So it was just, I don't know how to put it, but I would say being in the right place at the right time and pitching myself to the right person. It was just kind of synchronicity that it just so happened. I said, look, at the moment, I am looking to not only bring this to the college group, but looking to expand it to councils, because a lot of, and I've had this feedback from quite a few other people in the personal development space, as well as business and sort of local government leaders, that they are looking and they do understand the value of personal development for young people, especially because the pandemic has stunted a lot of people's young people's development. Not just the fact that they missed content in lessons and things like that during the pandemic, but also they've realized that just because somebody was able to take an exam, or even the fact that they have developed themselves has improved their exam technique and exam abilities. So whether they choose to continue with the concept of taking exams, or assessing people's knowledge through exams, personal development is able to cater for that in both a direct result, or in a direct way, and in an indirect consequence. Because once they become more uh, confident in their abilities, and they understand their growth, they understand the reasons why they're learning specific things, or the reasons why they're essentially here on this planet, is going to end up increasing their motivation, as well as increasing their drive to succeed, and that they can use along the way.
So that feeds in, nicely into my next question of like, what are the changes that you'd like to see on, like, let's say, like on a more bigger scale within like the education system and within, the areas that you work? It sounds like, as you said, you found the right place at the right time with the right open-minded people around you. So is it a case of more leaders within the education system being open-minded to things like personal growth, things like personal development, and actually seeing the value that it has for young people to help them grow and become the best versions of themselves?
Yes, absolutely. And the fact that most education providers are focusing quite a lot on mental health and improvement and maintaining staff sort of welfare and things like these. Um, that's the best place, and the best motivation that I can put forward to school and to education leaders. I would say specifically, my aim at the moment is to start from the leaders within colleges, because they're, I believe, the teenagers, before they get to university, or before they get into the workplace, we are basically the last buck, the last stop that they have before they essentially enter the real world. Um, and it's that's the sort of last opportunity, I think, to introduce the concept of constant improvement and constant development of young people. And it's at the time when they're the most influenced and influential. So whether, for example, at the moment we have quite a lot of conversations around negative personalities and negative influences from the media and so on into these young people's sort of world, and I have constant discussions in lessons and outside of lessons with my students, and I use every possible technique, especially coaching and training, to help them to broaden their perspective. Why is that person saying that particular thing? Why? What do you think are the motivations behind them wanting you to click on an ad or something like that? And that also broadens their understanding of what will their target audience, whenever they will enter the business world, what will be their understanding of their audience, and how will they use specific techniques to essentially grow businesses. So yes, ultimately the main target point for development and for awareness is the leaders of colleges or education providers. And obviously, from that point, they can influence and show the value to parents as well. Because essentially, yes, you can learn a lot of things in schools or in colleges, but if it's not reinforced at home as well, which the Seven Habits does have specified programs for families, and I can deliver those programs as well. So if it's, for example, families wanting to bring or to improve their cohesion or their sort of family welfare, then those tools are there as well for them. So yeah, the connection between colleges or education providers and local government, that's the, I think, the point at which the best option can be found.
It's funny because that was like actually my next question about actually talking about the home environment, right, and the role that parents have to play. Because obviously you mentioned that in the program that you teach, the business that you're starting, you have those programs for parents. So I think you did allude to it a bit there, but kind of going deeper into that, and it might not be parents, it might be those like guardians, etc. Because all families look different in all different kind of shapes and sizes, etc. But more of that environment out of school. Obviously, I guess as a school teacher, school leader, you probably have less control over. So is that also challenging? Like you're teaching these things in school, but maybe at home the parents aren't reinforcing it. So also, how do you balance that? Because obviously you just want to help the next generation to grow, right, to become best versions of themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So it is a key frustration that I do have, especially when I don't sort of see the connection, or the young people who come in don't have either a good relationship with their parents and guardians, or that their caregivers are at a point where they don't know how to help their young son or daughter, or otherwise, to 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 achieve something, or to find themselves. And I have various conversations with parents within the local area, um, and also for with the young people themselves. I sort of try to find where is the common ground, what is the main thing that they focus on in their relationships with family home, or how they bring these concepts into their families. So quite a lot of our discussions in lessons and outside of lessons are with the young people themselves, to first and foremost get them to understand their motivations for behaving, or for not behaving in certain ways. And a lot of that has to do with, and they realize that it has to do with how they see their caregivers, whether they see them as good role models or bad role models. And sometimes it's either getting the teaching from them or following in their footsteps, or going completely against it because they don't agree with how their parent has lived their lives, or what decisions they've taken. So it's just bringing consciousness to the young person, because that way they essentially can influence their relationship with their parents and caregivers. But alongside that, I do run, and I will be starting these local workshops in the library close to our college in Crawley. They have a sort of like a workshop sessions that are tailored for families, job seekers, and everybody who is interested in sort of any form of development, and bringing in the aspect of the Seven Habits into a workshop, whether it's once a week or once every 2 weeks in the library. Those people who are accessing that space will inevitably find that they can use those concepts, which will be essentially for free, to begin with, and use them to whether it's finding new jobs or finding their chosen career or their ideal career, as well as how do they improve relationships and their family lives. So yeah, that's it's kind of hitting it from multiple ways, both working with the young person as well as with parents and guardians, and even um, even other leaders that they come across.
Have you had any pushbacks based on what you're teaching, whether that's been from students or maybe parents, or maybe even other your fellow colleagues, or has it been more kind of outside the pushbacks influences based on what you're sharing and teaching?
Yes, so the aspect of, for example, breathing techniques, or the what people see as woo woo, it has been a challenge, especially when we're talking to very traditional thinking individuals. Even if they are teachers, they think training and improvement or leadership is the right way, so it's my way or the highway, and things like that. it it they The fact that a lot of people don't understand it, they don't understand how meditation or these sort of spiritual, what we call spiritual practices, have to do with them developing or even their leadership. That's where I bring in the connection and say, well, have you ever thought that how you breathe every day, or the biology behind it? Also, it helps that I come from a health and sporting background. I also try to make the connection between our physical body and how we think, and the brain, and the connection between why somebody who sort of goes on a diet, for example, doesn't achieve, or is easily easily gives up on their aims and goals. And we talk about every single day, there are the focus of education is on aims and goals of young people, but actually we don't give them the tools of how to set the right aims and goals for them, but also how to be resilient, and how to not feel discouraged when they do fail at something. They don't fail; they essentially learn from an experience that they've had. But it's the concept that you're not good at this, or you're a failure at this, and therefore you don't deserve to be called a leader, or you don't deserve to have something has something good happen to you, just because you have essentially failed at something. So I'm trying to change the culture of the thinking process with both my colleagues and all the young people that I come across.
And what's the feedback or experience been like actually in the classroom, so to speak?
For the young people.
Yeah. So as you're sharing this, teaching this, what's the feedback? I'm curious because I'm just kind of like thinking back to when I was at school, like how, because it's all consciousness and awareness, right, about how open I would have been to these concepts and stuff, and actually thinking back to so when I was at school, we did have a class called personal development, but knowing what I know now, I don't think that was personal development, right? So I don't even know what that was. But so I'm just kind of trying to make the contrast, I guess, and kind of seeing, I guess, like how far it's come, like actually within the education system, and the experience that the young people are having.
Yeah, so a lot of them actually, especially the business students that I spend a lot more time with, they they just know at a particular time in the week. Oh, this is what do they call it again? This is the they call it, this is the personal development time. This is the therapy time. Yes, that's the one. This is therapy time. They go, oh, Elena, is this our therapy time? And they actually quite recently have had a lot of them just when it came to a time when they were struggling with something, they would say, oh, can we have our therapy session in that time at that particular, or the last half an hour of whatever lesson, or so on. So actually, it's the fact that they are more open and they realize that I went through an exercise with them to sort of like the three most important questions, which I sort of used to get them to think further past this course, or past their current time, and say, okay, what would you like your ultimate life to look like, and how is your journey right now helping tailor that? Because a lot of people, and a lot of times, these young people don't see the value in not only learning a particular subject, or the value of being in traditional education. They obviously have seen the improvement, or the difference in their mindset and in their behaviors when they're in my lessons, and actually they've made comparisons with how they are in other teachers' lessons. And I always try to keep the balance and say, look, just because you have these experiences and these kind of like learning journeys in my lessons, that doesn't mean that you cannot have the same in other teachers' lessons. Obviously, there is a difference, and there is a disparity between the kinds of stuff and the kinds of ways of thinking that I bring to a lesson, or bring to an environment, and the kinds of lessons and improvements that other teachers do, which is essentially why I would like to bring it to be a part of the training journey of new teachers and new staff. Because once they use the 7 habits, or use personal development as their foundation to education, their everything in their lives, not only their personal lives, but their professional lives, will see the impact. They will see that young people are much more open to improvement, and they're able to show the progress. Right now, it's a lot of just, tick boxing and that kind of stuff, which is essentially what the students are saying. Well, we don't want to be a tick box. We want to be an individual that uses education to get them to where they want to be. And it's a lot of changing, or tweaking the mentality of both staff and the culture within education providers.
For you, is that like the ultimate? I guess what I'm trying to say is the ultimate mission, because when you're changing a culture, that takes like time, right? That isn't just like a 1 year thing. That isn't just a 3 year thing. I feel like that's an ongoing thing. Yeah. So is that kind of also how you see it?
Yes, and actually, a lot of people are actually getting to the realization that it's taken, especially technology, has helped improve, or push that journey along a little bit faster than they would have expected, because we're seeing the negative effects of how technology is affecting, or the overuse of technology and so on is affecting young people's lives. And when they get to a lesson, we either vilify technology, which is either because we don't understand it, or we use it as a tool. And I'd like to think that the young people have a much better grasp, or they have a different grasp of how technology can help them to improve, or to live more 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 self-sufficient lives, but also how to improve. Because let's say, when I was training, or even 20 years ago, actually I would say even 10 years ago, we didn't see the in real life kind of change within young people, and we couldn't necessarily document it very well. Whereas now we have so many tools that we can see somebody's progress, even from lesson to lesson, and we can show them. Because most of the time, if people cannot see what the value of something, they don't see it because they cannot see where they were and where they've gotten to. They can sometimes feel it intuitively, but if you say to someone, look, this was your thinking process, or your mind and your results, a month ago or 2 months ago or at the beginning of this course. Now at the end of the course or 2 or 3 months later, you are at this point, and you show them their progress. It it's a much more helpful and fulfilling concept for people when they see their own development and their own improvement.
Yeah, absolutely agree. One other question I did want to ask you, kind of going back to the 7 habits. I'm curious if you were, like, you personally were, if you were like in personal growth, I guess, before reading the 7 habits, or if that, or listening to the audiobook, if that put you on the path of personal growth and everything that's kind of happened since. Obviously, like, we connected through Mind Valley. So was your own personal growth something that you were doing beforehand with tools like Mind Valley, or again, was it an inspiration from the book?
So it started off as the inspiration, but I've always had any courses and improvements that I've done since, or throughout my life, throughout my career, has always been I has always been towards changing mindsets, which sort of I started off a master's in psychology, but I realized that actually that didn't necessarily address what I consider the real issues, or let's say traditional therapy or counseling didn't actually help people with their issues, or if it did, it took a very long time. So I was sort of under the concept of, why should something take so long, something that is very, very valuable, why should it take somebody 50 years to realize that they're not in the right relationship, or they're not in the right place in their career? It should be a sort of a faster journey, or a faster process, because in my own concept, I've always valued time, and I didn't see that actually being a therapist or a counselor did actually help people improve in the shortest time possible. And then I realized, and I sort of did a bit more research, that actually coaching and using 7 habits is a holistic approach. And also, my main frustration throughout my life has been the fact that most of the systems that we come across, both education, health, and otherwise, and career, they are not holistic systems, but actually we are a holistic human. So
if we don't address people from a holistic view, like we don't address their mental health, we don't address their physical health, and we also don't address their learning, in taking all of those things into account, which is what not only the 7 habits but primarily coaching and leadership does. If we don't address those things holistically, a person might actually improve in one aspect of their lives, but if we addressed every aspect, sort of the idea to improve 1% every single day in every single category of life, that essentially improves somebody 365% over a year. So that's kind of how I saw it, and it motivated me to kind of shout from the rooftops that personal development and leadership education, helping people to understand how to lead themselves before they become the next leaders, which I was frustrated with a lot of current leadership models, or the current leaders, and the ways that they were thinking and portraying. And I thought, you know what, if we don't address leadership or personal responsibility, personal improvement from a young age, especially from teenage years, then we're going to end up with 20, 30, 40, 50-year-olds that are going to be our leaders, and they might end up doing detrimental effects to both the world and to each other. So that, coming from a humanistic kind of philosophy, if we improve or help people individually to improve, then everybody improves all at the same time.
I definitely resonate with a lot of what you said there, like just the understanding that actually if I have something going on in my career or in my relationship or something, then that's going to impact other areas of my life, right? That's going to affect how I show up maybe in a social setting, how I, taking care of my health, etc. So, our lives are definitely holistic. And I think not a lot of people have have that viewpoint and also realize that. But again, like once I also realized that for myself and started to improve one area, then I noticed improvement in another area. And I think sometimes people might get overwhelmed with that, thinking that, they have all these areas and they constantly need to be working and improving at each. But as I just alluded to, that actually sometimes when we focus maybe a short period of time on one area and getting that area, stable, setting up some good habits, then that has an impact on the other areas of our lives. So is that something that you've done and also recommend for your coaching, or whether it's to students as well?
Yes, and essentially I help people to understand what is the most important thing that they would like to focus on at any given time, and just ask them to think of one habit, one thing that they would like or that they believe will improve, will if they did this one thing in their health, or if they did this one thing in their education, or if they did this one thing in their financial life, what would be the one thing that would have the biggest impact in each category, and just focus on those. And essentially, if we focus on one habit or one thing at a time, we're much more likely to succeed, or much more likely to see the effects. Because if we're constantly, and I've done this myself, constantly looking at different ways of doing the same thing, I got overwhelmed and ended up in sort of anxiety and depression and so on and so forth, because at the time I was focusing on building my financial stability. I was basically unemployed, living with my husband on £1,500 a month, which that wasn't even our rent and so on. That didn't cover most of our lives. And yes, it was a pandemic, but still, it meant that we still had to pay our rent, we still had to eat food, we still had to do all of that stuff. And if I didn't focus actually on my mental health, which impacted everything else, I don't think that I would have been here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Elena, thank you so much for your time. I want to respect your time because obviously you are at your college and stuff. So in the time that we do have left, a couple of minutes, do you have any final thoughts, words of inspiration that you would love to share with our audience, with our listeners today? And then, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about what you do?
Okay, so first and foremost, people can find me on my LinkedIn page. I also have a business LinkedIn page, which is called Effective Education. And I primarily focus on LinkedIn, but you can also find me on Instagram, which is also Effective Education, elena.effectiveeducation. And one of the main things that I would love to impart upon people is to learn to lead yourselves before attempting or trying to lead others.
Excellent. I love that.
Thank you very much.
It's a great way to end. Thank you so much. So everyone who's listening, watching to today's episode of Raising Consciousness, thank you as well for tuning in today. I will include all of Elena's links in the description and or basically below this video or in the description if you're listening on podcast. And I will be back next week for another episode. Elena, again, thank you so much. We should definitely do this again sometime. It's been a pleasure. And for more after today's show, be sure to head on over to raisingconsciousness.show to get all of the show notes, transcriptions, videos for each episode, and a hell of a lot more. And if you got value from this episode, found it insightful, or learned a thing or two, please leave a review where you can let everyone know that this show is worth checking out. I appreciate you so much. You'll be hearing from me in the next episode.